Welcome to the Magic of Positive Thinking, a podcast hosted by Norb Svanacini, founder of AmericanEagle.com, and writer Al Edwards. Norb, I never get tired of seeing you behind the microphone. Here we are again.
Yep, and if you're good, I'll let you see me,
a few more times.
A few more times. This is the first time, and the audience doesn't know this, but since we've been doing this is 3 years. The introduction has been screwed up by Al every time, except today. You did it perfectly.
Thank you. You're right. It normally takes me two or three takes to get it right.
So, very good.
That's right.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day today. It's like 55 degrees. It's sunny.
Yeah.
It's still February. And you got to thank God every day for this gift. It's just a beautiful day. Beautiful.
It is a beautiful day, and it tells me, and of course, friends, we're in the Chicago area. I think these are little teasers to give us hope that spring is coming.
Yeah. After the two really big snowstorms we got in March.
Right. And a few weeks ago, we had below zero weather.
Oh, yeah.
It was terrible. Well, friends, it's great to be with everyone again. We finally made it, even though we celebrated our 36-month anniversary in January. We unfortunately had to miss 1 month somewhere along the way, but now today is our 36th show. So Congratulations, Norb.
Yeah.
We're still at it.
Yeah, still at it.
Well, I think we have an exciting and fun show for you today. The title of today's show is going to be Classic Comedians That You Should Know. And, Norb and I spend a lot of time sending each other YouTube videos, and YouTube really is an amazing thing when you think about it.
It really is.
Yeah.
It really can basically program you. And
right.
We're going to talk about that humor.
Yeah.
I believe, and I think it's been proven scientifically that, if you start the day happy,
right,
you will have a better day.
There's no question.
YouTube is just a phenomenal, just collection of some of the greatest people in the humor industry.
Yeah.
And unluckily, a lot of them have been forgotten by, especially the young people of today. And you have all that wealth there.
Right.
It's there, And we're going to name some of these people today, which I think it's worth for you to look at, really.
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I'm going to ask our wonderful producer, Brian, to link some of these things to our podcast so you can see it. But Norb just hit on exactly what was the inspiration for this show. It's funny. There are so many super intelligent, great young people today that are really doing amazing things, literally changing the world, especially in the business we're in the website development business and technology business. For some reason, I'm not sure why that is, they're not aware of some of these classic comedians that were around 60, 70, 80 years ago. And when I was a kid, I'm in my late 50s, and for some reason, my generation bridged, what was going on in my own time, but I also had a knowledge of all the rest of that stuff. And for some reason, that's lost today. I'm not sure why that is.
I don't know either. I think that one of the motives is I hate to be blunt about it, but it's money. I mean, there's a lot of agents in the show business world. It's just like in the music business. America has produced some of the most incredible music ever. And it's not, the classical like Mozart or Beethoven, but is a popular music that's really beautiful, beautiful words, beautiful melodies. And because promoters promote new people, they forget about these older things, which is a shame because some of those were really, really incredible writers, incredibly music, not only music, but the words of the songs and
absolutely.
And you had whole shows that were musical, that were masterpieces, and today they don't exist anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the downsides, I think, of American culture, because we've done more in 250 years than any nation on earth, we tend to forget about our past for some reason.
Yeah, it's a shame too, because anytime you go any other place in the world, especially Europe or the Orient.
Right.
They're very proud of what they brought to the world. And I don't want to make that insignificant, but the U.S. has, if not equaled what it has brought to the world, probably superseded, with all the technology and entertainment and just look at the movie industry. I mean, there was nothing like movies before. If you didn't see somebody in the theater, you wouldn't know. And in the movies, the U.S. brought Walt Disney, because it's the easiest one for everybody to capture, to the world. And it's really very, very sad that we don't really appreciate that.
Exactly.
But, getting to the humor part of it, this country produced some of the funniest people that you can imagine. And we do recommend you go, to YouTube and just look at some of these people, because you're missing out.
Right.
If you don't do it. There was a guy, and I'm just bringing this up because to me this guy was always really funny. And he was actually born in Waukegan, right north of Chicago.
Jack Benny.
His name was Jack Benny. And Jack Benny, he was famous because he was so cheap.
Right.
That he would do anything, not to pay or not to do something because he had to spend money. And he was just one of the funniest guys you could ever imagine. And he had a deadpan look and just phenomenal. He was a violinist, actually, a very, very, really knowledgeable guy about the violin.
Yeah.
And I think he even played in some orchestras or something. But he was known for humor. And he had a butler, and he was a black guy by the name of Rochester. And Rochester was not like a regular butler. He was kind of like, I don't know how his guardian angel, so to speak, and would tell him. He'd make jokes about him. And it was just a phenomenal guy. And if you've never heard or listened to Jack Benny, please do, because he really was kind of special.
Yeah, it's a great way to start the show off. That's exactly our job today, is to talk about people like Jack Benny. As a matter of fact, we have a customer in Waukegan, Illinois, AmericanEagle.com customer. I was there about a month and a half ago, and I tried to conduct a self-guided Jack Benny tour, which they actually have. And I tried to go to some of his first homes and everything. And I think one of them was torn down. I couldn't find it, but he was a world famous comedian, Jack Benny. And he's from this little suburb up north of Chicago, which is really amazing when you think about it.
Yeah. And Jack Benny was one of the many people that were really funny. I mean, you take guys like Laurel Hardy. If you haven't seen any of his movies, they're on YouTube. These two guys were just two idiots, basically, that you couldn't stop but laughing. The Three Stooges, the same way, total idiots.
Right.
And nobody, and they did crazy stuff that today you probably couldn't do, because some of them would consider them dangerous for children to see, because they would take a hammer and probably hit the other guy with a hammer on his head. And the Three Stooges were phenomenal. Laurel Hardy were incredible. Then you had, Abbott Costello. Yep. I mean, Abbott Costello were incredible. If you've never had the explanation of baseball, Abbott Costello are the only two non-baseball players to be in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah, right.
Because they had a skit. And what was the name of this?
Who's on First?
Who's on First? And if you haven't listened to that, it's a masterpiece. It really is. And I don't want to minimize the people that are talented today, but I don't know offhand anybody who could match that. Who's on First? It's just incredible talent.
Yeah, it is, and it's a play on words, and it's really entertaining. And it's this Who's on First skit that we're talking about, again, on YouTube, all over the place. it's a play on words, and there's confusion between the two of them, and it is really, really funny. But let's talk about that was kind of first on my list, Laurel and Hardy. So Stan Laurel, Oliver Hardy. Oliver Hardy was kind of the big heavy-set guy, and Stan Laurel was the thinner, kind of dummy guy. They're both dummies, but Oliver Hardy thought that he was
just like Al and I.
Right, exactly.
He's the chubby one.
I'm the chubby one.
Yeah.
I'm the Oliver Hardy. And although that doesn't say much about you if you're Stan Laurel.
Well, that's okay. I'd be happy to be Stan Laurel.
He was the genius of the group, though, ironically.
Well, I knew that.
Yeah. I see. That's why you wanted to be him, right?
Yeah.
But Oliver Hardy was from Harlem, Georgia, born in the 1890s, and Stan Laurel was from England, actually.
Oh, yeah.
And they both started in silent pictures. And you're not going to believe this. I don't know if you know the story, but Oliver Hardy burned his hand severely cooking a roast of lamb or something at home one day. And he was injured so severely that he couldn't do his usual acting and funny stuff in the screen because he was injured. So Hal Roach, who was we're going really way back here. Hal Roach was a producer in those early days, very famous producer. He put Stan Laurel in one of Oliver Hardy's short films to kind of, jazz it up a little bit because Oliver Hardy was injured in this personal accident. And that's what started Laurel and Hardy. And they made 106 films between 1921 and 1951, including 27 full-length pictures. And, Norb grew up in Argentina, came here when he was about 12. But do you remember seeing Laurel and Hardy in the theater?
Oh, yeah, sure. I grew up with all those guys. And, in Argentina, we didn't have television till 1953 or so. And I came to this country in 53.
You came here because of television.
Yeah, because of TV. And what's interesting is that, you used to go to the movies and you'd spend the whole day in a movie theater.
Right.
They showed 2 or 3 films and then a lot of shorts. And as kids, we liked the shorts just as much as the movies because these were all comedies, comedies. And I really think, and I recommend this to people, if you're down or in today's world, all you see is negativity, just put one of these guys on W.C. Fields,
Another guy,
another guy who was a phenomenal
a juggler.
Yeah, juggler.
Yeah.
I mean, phenomenal. He did movies that some of them today you couldn't make at all because they were really daring,
pretty risque too. Yeah.
And the stuff he did, and you wonder, oh my God, look at this. We think we're modern. But back then, it was phenomenal. And when you see it today, you don't even feel that it's old because that's just the way it was. And these are all guys that we're recommending. There's tons of them, Jackie Gleason. It's a shame. I work with a lot of young people here, and a lot of them have never seen Jackie
Never heard of Jackie Gleason.
And they've never seen The Honeymooners. If you've never seen The Honeymooners, go to YouTube, just pick on any one of them. You're going to laugh like crazy, okay? Guys like George Burns and Gracie Allen, who were phenomenal people. And the reason we're telling you this, because Al and I, we do this show, and we're very proud because we get a nice feedback. And I do want to thank, the audience if you enjoy it, because we try to make the world a little better. I think that's important.
We sure do. We try.
But the interesting part about it is we're talking today. Obviously, we never, practice this or anything, because you can tell. But one of the things is to make people happy, and humor is a very, very important part of life. It really is. And there's not enough of it today.
Right.
There's not enough of it.
There's more negativity today than ever. That's one of the reasons we wanted to start this show, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, we talked about Laurel and Hardy. We talked about Abbott and Costello a little bit. They did 28 movies together, Abbott and Costello, Lou Costello and Bud Abbott. Their movies are great. I happen to be my favorite is the 1950s TV show, the Abbott and Costello TV show.
Yeah, yeah.
Which was filmed in front of a live audience, which is also on YouTube. So we heartily, Laurel and Hardy recommend that. Then there's a group of brothers, very, very famous, called the Marx Brothers.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
They were real brothers. There was 5 of them. 3 of them became the most famous. Of course, probably, if you have heard of the Marx Brothers, you may have heard of Groucho Marx.
And that's another sad thing, because I ask young people around here, have you ever heard of Groucho Marx? No, Groucho Marx, not only was he great in movies, he had a TV show that was like number 1 or 2.
You Bet Your Life.
You Bet Your Life.
In the 50s.
Yeah. And it was, I mean, you watch those shows, and this guy was so quick, that it was incredible. And there doesn't seem to be anything like that today. If there is, I'm ignorant about it. And even, if you go back even 20 years, I think Rodney Dangerfield, you take a guy like Johnny Carson, that every night, you'd watch Johnny Carson, and I would go to sleep watching Johnny Carson laughing.
Right.
And I always remember that I thought, God, is this a good way to go to sleep? Because finally you're tired, but you're laughing because this guy was on TV, and he brought all these incredible people, as guests, and a lot of comics that a lot of them started there.
Oh,
Tim
absolutely.
Allen started there.
Oh, God, got their break.
Yeah.
Their whole life changed. Well, it's hard to believe that we have to describe who Johnny Carson was, because
it really is.
He, for 30 years, from 1962 to 1992, basically, he was the host of The Tonight Show that Jay Leno eventually took over. And then now Jimmy Fallon is the host. But I mean, he was the king of television for 30 years, Johnny Carson.
Oh, yeah. And every night.
Every night. Yeah. 5 days a week. Of course, as he got more and more wealthy and influential, he would take, work 3 days a week or something. But for the most part, he was on the TV for 30 years, and it was a staple of American culture. So again, YouTube, Johnny Carson is, old shows, old things on Johnny Carson all over the place on YouTube. It's fantastic. But, Jackie Gleason, some of our younger listeners may know the movie Smokey and the Bandit.
You're right. Yeah.
And he played the Sheriff Buford T. Justice, which it's funny because of his long career. That was one of his greatest known performances, was this crazy sheriff chasing Burt Reynolds around in this Trans Am.
Right. Yeah. There were movies that were basically, all the people, all the comics were the leading people.
Right.
I think one of the funniest movies with the most amount of great comedy people was it's a mad world.
Yeah.
And if you haven't seen that movie, it's just a totally funny movie. And if you're not knowledgeable about old comics, this one has probably more than just about anybody, because they got Sid Caesar. I mean, they have so many.
A million people in that movie.
My God.
I can't even name them all. Yeah. That was about 1960, I believe, wasn't it?
In fact, Rochester was in it.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was a taxi driver. And just incredible group of people.
Now, Norb, when you were a kid in the 50s, did you watch You Bet Your Life and the Honeymooners at that time with your parents?
Was that in the 50s
or
60s?
No,
I watched it. Oh, of course. Yeah, sure. Everybody watched it. I mean, TV, and there were only a few channels. There were only like
3 or
5
4
channels.
Yeah.
And there was NBC, ABC, CBS, and then there was a local.
Right.
And the PBS. And it was really an interesting period. Yeah, and we used to sit and just laugh. Everybody, my grandmother came to this country, didn't speak a word of English. She was in her 70s. And I always remember that she would be watching Sid Caesar and cry laughing. And she didn't even know what the heck the guy was saying.
Because she didn't speak English.
She didn't speak English.
Oh, my God.
Because of just the way he acted. I mean, if you've never watched Sid Caesar, with Imogene Coca.
Yeah.
I mean, he had some of the funniest skits you could ever imagine. Carl Reiner was with him.
Carl Reiner.
And just incredible. And, we're talking about this, and we usually don't have too much time, as much as we'd like. One of the things we were going to talk about, because of the funny part about it, too, I wanted to talk about this. I told this Al before we came here, is that today you don't see like a lot of happy people.
Right.
And that's really a shame, because I had two experiences within the last couple of weeks. I was relating this to Al, and we were laughing about it. But I went to two fast food places, burger joints.
You want to name them, or does that be a free plug? We don't want to do that.
Well, no, you can. One of them was a McDonald's. The other one was Cane's.
Oh, the chicken fingers.
Yeah, chicken fingers.
Raising Cane.
Yeah. Raising Cane. And Raising Cane is totally different than McDonald's, because they only have one thing.
Right.
Okay. But it was still a challenge. McDonald's, of course, has a menu that's incredibly complicated, and I think they lost that thing about making hamburgers. They got, like 50, 60 things you got to pick from.
Ironically, though, McDonald's started with 4 or 5 things.
Oh, yeah. Well, burger, simple. Fries, and a milkshake.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, both of these places, when I entered and I ordered, behind the cash register, there were 2 young girls, probably, I think from 16 maybe to 20. Very nice looking girls. But, it just shows you the youth, what's happening. It was just sad.
They were miserable.
First of all, they weren't. They were there just making $12 an hour, whatever they make, and nobody told them, just smile to the customer. Now, that's not the worst of it. The worst of it is that you tell them what you want, and they look at you like with a blank face, just like they don't really understand, and they ask you for the drink, and then the credit card, and to remove it. And Raising Cane was not too bad, but it was a shock how much trouble she had dealing with one product. Now, when you go to McDonald's, there's a lot of products, and McDonald's not only has the hamburger and the other stuff and the Big Mac and stuff, but they also have the meals. And with the meals, they have number 1 and number 2 and number 3. But the interesting part about it is that I came with this idea, which is kind of funny, but it's also, I'm really proud of it. I think every high school in the junior year should take a classroom and have a dummy McDonald's setup. And before you graduate, everybody has to know how to treat a customer, how to make change, how to know what the menu is. And, when somebody says, I want number 2, you say, oh, that's a cheeseburger with fries, sir, and what kind of drink would you like?
Right.
Which I think would make the person feel better to know. And that comes into the one thing I wanted to talk about today is attitude.
Right.
I think in this country right now, there's a terrific lack of good attitude. And when you have good attitude, you just feel better. But to have good attitude, you have to have a little knowledge about what you're talking about. Now, I hate to say this because it really sounds awful, but these two young gals, you feel sorry for them. What are they going to grow up to be? They've never heard anybody say, not only are you going to make $12 here, but you're going to learn a lot about the food business,
Right. Right.
and different drinks, and try to make change in your head instead of looking at the machine, because it's kind of a funny thing that the total lack of enthusiasm, just a horrible attitude.
See, and this is what I took away from this conversation that we had about this very thing this afternoon. It's not that these two young ladies were probably not intelligent. I'm sure they were. It was their attitude or their lack of enthusiasm that is rampant in society. It's just symbolic of where we are today.
Yeah, and I love to end this with this, and we didn't plan it, but it came to me. We had a show one time. I don't remember. It was one of the first 5 or 6,
Mm-hmm.
and we should repeat it. But the thing that really, really impressed me is that I don't know if it was 95 or 98% of all children are born geniuses.
Geniuses, yeah.
And that was a study done by a governmental agency. I think it was the space agency.
Yeah, I think you said it was NASA. Yeah.
NASA, yeah. Where they took like all these kids, thousands of children, and they tested them, and they all tested genius. And, our challenge as adults is not to destroy that, because those kids are a product of what they're told or what they hear or what they learn.
The lackluster kids at the cash register.
And I don't remember and I am going to pull it back. I do want to repeat it, but by the time they're 5, it drops down to like 70%. By the time they're in high school, it's like 7%, and so on and so on. So we're destroying this, but the capacity is there. Just think of that. The capacity is there. And I hate, we repeat this in every show, and I'll probably repeat it in every show, but our brain is like soil. Whatever you put in it, it will give you back. And it's free. It comes standard. I don't care if you're born, in the wealthiest place in the world or the poorest. That brain is fertile. And the U.S. has proven this. People like Ford and Edison, we always say this, if they were born in Europe, they would have never, ever done what they did here, because in America, they were told you can do whatever you want in America.
Right.
And they had that attitude. Just think, and again, we say this in every show, Edison failed 3,000 times. He had that attitude that he was going to get that damn light bulb done,
Yeah, there's an expression, I always screw this up, but I want to make sure I get it right. Your attitude, not your aptitude, will determine your altitude.
That's Ziegler.
I think, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Zig Ziglar said that, yeah.
Yeah, but what's interesting is that, we all have that capacity. We all have. And when you see these young girls, nice looking, both of them were very nice looking, but they're like lost in space.
Right.
You don't see any fire in their bellies, if you can say that, that they're happy to be there. The first thing I would tell somebody is, say hello. How are you? Good morning. Good afternoon. Just attitude.
I think that's lost. I really do. I think that's lost.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think it's lost because nobody preaches it.
Right.
Not even McDonald's. I mean, you think a company like McDonald's, you would think that part of their training would be smile. And there is one and again, I hate to promote. I'm not promoting, but there is one chain where I think they do teach that.
Is that Culver's?
It's Culver's.
Yep.
Yeah, and believe me that Al and I never talked about that. But
Yep.
yeah, you go to Culver's, and for some reason or other, the people kind of smile there. So somebody must tell them.
They're trained, yeah. And they always say, "My pleasure."
I don't know that. I believe you.
Yeah.
But it's just that they are taught to have a nice attitude about life.
Yeah.
And which is, again, going to humor. Start the day with humor. Start the day thanking God for this gift you have. Be happy. Be happy to be alive. And right now we're living in incredibly interesting times. Whether good or bad, they're interesting,
Approach life with enthusiasm, whether you're working at McDonald's when you're 16 or you're 97, right? Have enthusiasm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I think that ties directly into what we are trying to do today. And humor is good for the soul. It builds enthusiasm. It builds good thoughts and happiness. So, friends, unbelievably, again, we've run out of time, but we want you to check out Laurel and Hardy and Abbott and Costello and W.C. Fields and the Marx Brothers. And we're going to put some links to some of our favorite clips from these guys on our podcast. So now if you're a younger person and you've never heard of these people, now thanks to Norb and Al, that you know of these people. And you know what? I'm proud of that.
Me too. Me too. And I hope that you do take the time, like Al and I do, by the way, to look up some of these people. They're funny people.
It never gets old.
No. I mean, it's incredible.
Norb, thank you as always for your insight. It's appreciated.
Thank you, Al. God bless.
Thank you. And friends, we are going to see you on our next show, and we've got some great stuff coming up for the rest of the year. So for Norb Savannasini, this is Al Edwards, and we will definitely see you next time. Take care.